Hello, and welcome to part 7 of Povop City in Cities Skylines II. And today we do have quite a few problems, and today they're pretty big problems. For example, over here, there is an ambulance that has yet to arrive. Again, this is a major issue, because medical is not something that should be lacking in a city as a service. So I do want to check on our hospital, and as we can see, it has enough vehicles, but they are, for some reason, I guess, unable to get here swiftly, which to me honestly does not make a ton of sense, as even though this is technically, well, I mean, I guess not technically anything, but you really wouldn't be able to turn around here. There's a roundabout right here that you could turn around. So I'm assuming that's just more of a one-time thing than something that will persist. So that's something we could probably leave alone. Something we probably cannot leave alone is this traffic over here coming into the city. And it is actually pretty immense, and it is just a bottleneck everywhere you look. Now, I think the way to fix the traffic would probably be over here to add 2 lanes for turning. This will knock out a considerable amount of parking, but also just to help traffic a little more, we will also move the bus line over here. Actually, I don't even know why this bus station is here. It does not do a thing. I honestly think this whole road should be converted just because of the turning of buses over here. Hopefully that should help a lot to clear things up after one final change, which is making this a 3-lane asymmetric road. With traffic problems hopefully resolved in the coming time, we can look towards adding more of actual zoning. Now again, over here traffic is not necessarily out of hand, but it's definitely an issue. So I do think it might make sense just to buy just a couple of tiles, right? 3 tiles isn't a ton, but it's more money than we really have. At the same time though, it would open up a pretty fair amount of industry, as there is a really large amount of trees over here. It also has quite a bit of farmland. Well, at least oh no, that's meters, not kilometers. Never mind then. It does have good amount of ore, and somehow fish, I guess, over here. It has a lot of groundwater, surprisingly, and it does have actually a pretty considerable amount of building area. So I think this is something that we should look into if it is something we can afford. With these tiles bought, we can look towards expanding our sort of throughway, freeway, whatever, through over here. Now additionally, I am seeing this interchange is a little weird. Mainly because there's 3 roundabouts lined up like this, but honestly this isn't too much of a turn over here, so I am going to make a change, as you will see in a second. And I think this makes a little more sense. Now I do know this will complicate the roundabout, but I do think it should be okay, and it is, I think, still a bit of a better solution. Now this hill is really steep, which is actually a messing with the road. I mean, that's more of a game glitch than a fundamental glitch, so I do think I'll leave it. And for the first time, I'm actually seeing the new update, which changes quite a bit in the game, which allows you to actually change materials, which I think has been a long-awaited feature. I mean, not personally one I've looked towards. And before I did look at this topography tool, I will have to look back, but I'm not sure this existed before either. And there we go. That is both the highway and the intersection complete, which should add much more connectivity and allow us to develop much more along it and allow this area to grow especially. Now, as I mentioned before, this area has an exceptional amount of trees, so that is what I'm going to look into adding along it now. Now that we added more to our industry of forestry, which already is in a major surplus, we're going to see us exporting a lot of lumber, which arguably might cause a pretty large amount of traffic in the area, but at the same time, it should be just fine. I am also seeing our buses are using this new highway we have made, which is pretty great. But again, something we still have yet to address is the demand. Now, I do want to see when we unlock some new types of buildings, such as actual high-density housing, and it is sooner than we might think. So this is something I would like to wait a little bit for before we start building super large amounts of high density. Now, for some reason, office demand has gone away completely, but that should be just fine, as it probably will come back eventually. Again, though, we don't really have an option to build more industry, as there's just not space. Additionally, looking at the area, I think this road could be shrunk down quite a bit. Now, for this area, something I would definitely like to plan for is eventually adding larger public transit networks. As I've mentioned before, this area is going to eventually become somewhat the heart of the city, as it will have over here as a financial district, and this will essentially over here become a population center with more high-density houses. So I do want to make sure traffic is flowing good, and there aren't any problems. I'm not sure why there are a ton of cars over here, presumably for parking though. With that said though, I think then it would make sense to add quite a bit of parking. This right here should do the trick, and it should allow us to also maybe add another road if we move it to the one down one. For some reason, the road placed a little bit wacky. But honestly, I don't think this looks too terrible, and honestly, I think it fits in a little bit. So I do think this is something I will leave, and I think I will just add a few homes along here. Additionally, whether it was correlation or just something that changed, traffic over here has been cleaned up. And I am seeing that cars are now also coming from this direction. So in my books, that's a pretty huge win. And again, traffic over here has cleaned up too. Whether again that be because people have finished moving in or because we've added a second connection, I don't know. Nonetheless, this is a pretty great thing. And again, over here I want to look at again just so we can prepare for the major amounts of offices we will have. My original plan there was to add some sort of park that's not an actual park, but would look very nice. But because of how much snow there is, we're not going to be able to do that because I cannot see what I am doing. But I did also end up leveling out the terrain a bit, which should be helpful for the future. I do think I want to look towards developing probably along this road now. And there we go. That is much of especially biking infrastructure laid out in this area, and of course the actual road too. Now there are still some minor tweaks to be made, such as adding medians and getting rid of parking on this main road. Now additionally, as we know, we can see demand is much higher, especially for offices, which is exactly what we've been wanting. So, I think it's just about time we zone in. And now that the snow is gone, I think we can also add our little park. And there we go. This is the sort of park that also functions as a pass-through park complete. Now, of course, in the future, we might decide to add little pieces here and there. But for now, I think this is a pretty complete park. Now, I do also want to add some roads and start actually putting some offices in the middle. And there we go. That is pretty much all of our grid layout completed for this area. And I think this should make it super easy to zone in. And really, I just love how much the park adds, and especially because there is a road going along it with connections to it, I just think it's pretty great. Because not only does it look nice, it adds functionality too. And that is all of our office demand gone. And just out of curiosity too, I do just want to check the land value. Now the land value over here is higher just because of a school, but I think in real life you would also just see an increased land value around a really nice park like this. Now, all that remains though is housing demand and industrial demand. Now as I've said before, we really cannot build more industrial, so we are going to have to hold off on that. And as far as housing demand, I want to more focus on high density, but we don't really have a ton of the buildings I would like to use unlocked. So I do think what I will do is just sort of continue to buy land tiles, add roads to get XP, add services to get XP, and once we have these buildings, just start constructing. Slowing this down a bit, just because I did forget to unmute my microphone, we have completed the road layout and bike infrastructure, walking infrastructure, and all of the infrastructure. And as we can see, some of the buildings has even started to zone in. And honestly, I think the area is looking great, and will only look better once we add more, such as public transit and much taller buildings. Switching gears for a minute, we need to acknowledge that our city is literally in a state of disrepair. All of these red roads that you're seeing, especially these main roads, mean that they are in terrible, terrible condition, and they are super dangerous to drive on. And what made me realize that was actually the accident that occurred. To fix this, we can use a road maintenance depot, and as you can see, I'm placing one down now. And again, as you can see, this is a very, very wonky placement, as the gradient is just kind of crazy. So I'm going to choose to move it and put it in a much more reasonable spot. And I do choose this spot right here because it does have access to main roads and connections to other roads. Again, it's central, and I think it just makes a ton of sense to go right here. And just like other buildings in the game, we know we can expand this one to add more vehicles to help our city's roads when we add many, many more. And right now you're watching my confusion for why there are only 2 vehicles active in the facility when there should be 10 by default. It ended up being the problem that the roads budget was super duper low, limiting our vehicles and putting many of them in maintenance, which just means we cannot have them because our budget is too low. And to fix another problem that popped up quick, we have a sewage problem where our facility cannot handle the amount of sewage. Again, this is a simple fix where we can just increase the water budget from a snowy field to a massive amount of land that is going to be used for offices or a way for mobility or where employees can spend their lunch break. It is a overall great land use, and I think it is going to only allow the area to become much better and greater overall. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I really appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, have yourself a great day.